and the voice of his generation. Real, raw. With the subtleness of a sledgehammer, he pounds out the truth, one issue at a time. The Josh Bernstein Show starts where the rest of the media ends. And now, here's the mainstream media's worst nightmare, Josh Bernstein.
Welcome back to the program. In this short segment, we're going to talk about fascism. All we hear are these Antifa kids, and I call them kids because most of them are very young, covering their faces, running around, saying, Trump's a fascist, right? We hear it in the CNN, MSNBC media. Trump's a fascist, 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 right-wing extremist, blah, 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 blah. He's Hitler, right? We hear these by any means necessary, Black Lives Matter. All these thug groups basically are saying the same thing. They're screaming this word fascism, and they're trying to label, incorrectly, which I'm going to point out, that President Trump and anyone that disagrees with left-wing ideology and communism is somehow a right-wing fascist. Now, the definition of fascism, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary's definition, is defined as a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and race above the individual and that stands for a centralized, autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader who imposes severe economic and social regimentation and forcible suppression of opposition. That is the definition from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. The lie, and I'm going to call it what it is, the lie that the left has been telling for years, since the end of World War II, as a matter of fact. That's when they started this lie. They've been teaching it in history class for generations and generations. They've been telling this lie that fascism is somehow associated with the right-wing ideology and that all of these fascist leaders were right-wing Nazis and ideologues. Well, this is totally false, and I'm going to go through and explain why. The authoritarian government of Nazi Germany, for instance, not only oppressed opposing political views, and they used violence, including murder, to enforce their views, but more importantly, they supported a very large and powerful centralized government, which gave out tons of social benefits to its citizens. This is exactly what the left in America and around the world advocates for today. Think about that for 1 second. They believed in a centralized, big government that handed out benefits, government handouts, whatever you want. That is the exact same ideology of the left in America and around the world right now. Adolf Hitler and other leaders like Benito Mussolini, these were not men on the extreme right. These were men on the extreme left. And it's about time somebody pointed this information out. Okay? They were, after all, self-identified as, quote, national socialists. Not national right-wingers, not national conservative right-wingers. No, they were national socialists. National, meaning of the nation, the collective, the sum of everyone. And of course, socialist, meaning also the collective, the equality of everyone, and a commonality. So if you see, and I'm going to talk about this in just a second, but if you look at this image, this is an image of Google. When you put in the words fascism, what's the definition of fascism in Google? This is what the definition that Google was giving for a very long time. I believe now that it has been exposed, they have changed it back, because I have done research on this and I have tried to find the definition to be anything different from the one from Merriam-Webster, and unfortunately I haven't been able to find it. So I did my research and I found these screenshots that show that this is what Google changed the definition of fascism to: an authoritarian and nationalistic right-wing system of government and social organization. So, Google and the leftists out there, we already know that Google has gerrymandered the different search results during the election. If you put in Hillary Clinton, you got Hillary Clinton's foundation, but it never said anything negative. You got Hillary Clinton's campaign. It was never anything about Hillary Clinton in emails, Hillary Clinton in money laundering, Hillary Clinton in pay-for-pay, Hillary Clinton's health. No. You have to go to Bing and other search engines to get that kind of information. So we already know that Google is a globalist organization, just like Facebook. We already know that it would be wonderful if both of these organizations were broken up or dismantled somehow. But we also know that they serve a higher purpose, and that purpose is the new communism. Globalism is the 21st century's communism. And that is what all these leaders in Washington and these leaders around the world and Soros and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all these other people out there, this is what they want. They want to use globalism to control us all, from our food supplies to our health care to our borders to our language to our culture. They all want us to be under the same tent, and that is why we are fighting so hard against all this. So I wanted to point that out, that they have gone once again behind our backs and changed the definition of fascism. And in closing in this segment, fascism is a left-wing ideology, not right-wing. That's all I got for this week. Until next week, God bless. Thank you for watching the all-new Josh Bernstein Show. For more hard-hitting news and analysis, please head on over to patreon.com/Josh Bernstein, where you'll get all access to the Josh Bernstein Show. And you can become a patron for as little as $1 per month, and your contributions will help us bring you more news more often. Thank you. Hi, I'm Josh Bernstein, TV talk show host and national spokesman for the Association of Mature American Citizens, or AMAC for short. AMAC is the conservative alternative to groups out there like an AARP. We have all the same types of products and services for folks 50 years of age or older. The only difference is when we lobby on behalf of Washington and Congress, it is to provide seniors with more healthcare choices and decision and control. So check us out at amac.us or call them toll free at 888-262-2006. Again, 888-262-2006. Tell them that Josh Bernstein, their national spokesman, was talking about them. Anytime you call that number, mention my name and you'll get an absolute free membership. That's right, folks, a totally free membership. No strings attached. You don't have to purchase anything. Even if you have AARP and you just want to try something different, check us out at amac.us. Call 888-262-2006 and get your free membership today.
My
Yep,
name's
you're in the field of
Phil,
view.
Agent RPM. We're here broadcasting today from our studios at 401 Main, Able Danger Midwest. Here with Field McConnell.
That's me.
We also have our third mate with us today. That is Agent Roy. Agent Roy, would you say hi to everybody?
Hello. Very good.
So we just rushed off from watching a terrible football game. And now we're here to bring you a what we think will be a very interesting show on several different items that have come to mind here recently. We had a gentleman email, I think it was one of our agents.
No, it was a question. It was a cold call. Guy we'd never talked to before.
Right.
You got a copy of it?
And I do have a copy of it.
Great.
And what I want to do is I want to bring this up for discussion with Field, because the gentleman brought up some very interesting things, and it's even more interesting because it happens to be Sunday, and there were some things involved in this which came to fear and faith. And so the gentleman had asked a question, well, actually made a statement saying that he had just found Field and found it to be very interesting, the amount of information that Able Danger broadcasts and is able to research. And his concerns were based on, should not Field be in fear for what seemed to be his life based on all of this information that is being broadcast by Able Danger? And I'm going to ask Field the question because I think that's where this falls into fear and faith, is when you do have faith, fear sort of fades away because we're not in charge of all of this. All of this is being put together for us, whether we want to know it or believe it or not. So, Field, the question is, I want you to talk about faith, and because of your faith, not having to address fear. So, here's Field.
Yeah, first of all, my name comes up a lot, Field, but to be quite honest, you can see my Colonel Henry Blake hat, so I don't take this, I mean, the subject matter is very serious and very negative, but it doesn't frighten me, and it doesn't frighten anyone else that's working with Able Danger. And surprisingly enough, my wife Denise, who's in England, because our information is so accurate and lethal that the people that pass out visas are playing a waiting game where they do nothing and we wait. But that'll be over at some point. But as far as the gentleman who sent me the email gave me some background of himself. Did you notice? Did you notice the picture of the?
I did, and he made a statement in here, and let me just preface this by reading what this gentleman had to say.
Good.
He says, "Okay, so I saw you, Field, on the Hagman show last week. I am floored by the information you guys have. Aren't you afraid?" Now, the Field answered that part of the question. We won't get into that yet. But then he says, "Hell, I'm afraid for you. You must be dodging bullets all the time. I'm a former Air Force, having held a top secret clearance and worked under Space Command at a remote radar site in Florida. I am most certain that you, Field, could probably pinpoint that location without my even giving you the area that I was in." He's already done that, by the way. Anyway, as I listened to you and David talk back and forth about these reports going to General Kelly, I have one question. Why in the hell are you sending these reports to Kelly? I'm going to end with that right now, because we're going to turn this over to Field, and the first thing we're going to talk about is Field's faith and his trust in his faith that allows him to move without fear. Go ahead, Field.
Yeah, that's true. And what I was trying to say earlier is I'm just a part of this organization. And even though people think that David and I might have elevated positions, we don't have any positions. Uh, David was created by the Creator and given a great logical mind and the ability to connect mental dots. David and I are completely different animals, and I've got handicaps he doesn't. I've got skills he doesn't, but we counterbalance each other fairly well. And when you get us both going in one conversation, it's really hard for people to catch up because they don't know whether to take us seriously, be shocked, be upset. And so I want to address that first. David and I are just two of the people that do this, but we're the two that get seen the most often. But the only party that is causing this to be effective is God Himself, who created the world. And I know it's Sunday, and I also know I'm a sinner. And guess what? That's been taken care of long ago. Uh, but God called me, and I mentioned this to this man. I said that if you want to read about how God called me and what He called me to do, it's written in Psalm 94:16, which basically says, "Who will engage the evil parties for me? Who will take care of this on earth?" Well, I'll rattle some off. Myself, David Hawkins, Craig Peterson, Tim Roberts, uh, my wife Denise, Bucky Badger. There's a person in Massachusetts who, like myself, was an airline whistleblower and a Marine pilot. And so right there, when you hear that several of our people were Marines, those people that really don't understand the Marine Corps are going to start thinking, oh, no wonder they're doing it. They're stupid. Well, Trump's got 3 Marine generals surrounding him. And so Trump, at least, must have some faith in Marines. And Marines are a little bit different than other branches simply because of the law. And the laws are that Marines can be put on foreign soil without the permission of Congress, whereas the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy, they need to get congressional approval. Not that any of the recent presidents have honored that, but that's what the rules are. But the people running our shadow government and the deep state, they don't play by the rules. They make up their own rules because they have one critical piece of information that just hasn't dropped on them yet. They don't understand that they can effort to do all the evil they want, and they can toil endlessly, and they can be vastly wealthy, and they can be vastly well connected, and they can go around intimidating most people, but they can't intimidate every person. And God Himself has assembled this crew. Is we okay?
Oh, we're
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, God Himself assembled this crew. And how do I know that? Well, first of all, the easy answer to how I know God's done it is as it pertains to my participation in 9/11. There's 3 things that are unique to me, and that's not a boast. If people think I'm egotistical, they might be right, but I don't think I boast about anything I do. In fact, contrary, I can tell you most of the things I've done wrong, and the only power in the world that knows more of what I've done wrong is God Himself, because He might be paying attention where I'm not. And you can read into that whatever you wish to read into it. But let's go back to the fear thing after I tell you the 3 unique connections. Number one, my sister and Hillary Clinton took my intellectual property about joining of aircraft, specifically airliners, and they introduced that into the plans for 9/11. Just this morning, I was watching an interview of a guy who I know nothing about, but our chat room knows a lot about him. His name is James Perloff, Perloff. I know very little about him, but he was being interviewed by Richie Allen over in the United Kingdom, and he was talking about the possibility that certain Boeing airplanes can be remotely controlled. And Richie, who interviews me, I guess he's interviewed me 3 or 4 times, he said, "Oh, do you know Field McConnell and what he thinks?" And the guy said, "Yes, I do." And then I had to really concentrate to see if he was agreeing with me or disagreeing with me. And my wife, Denise, held my feet to the fire. She said, "Go back and listen to it 3 or 4 more times. I think he's agreeing with you." And, I did listen to it 3 or 4 more times. And I think actually, and this is where those of you in the chat room that know something about James Perloff, you know my email address is fieldmcc@yahoo.com. I would like you to send private emails to me, and don't copy anybody else. I'm not going to change your words, but I'm going to form a consensus during this radio show of what the chat room thinks of James Perloff, because he seemed to be taking the argument and demonstrating some level of fluency on the remote control of Boeing aircraft, but he's got several things critically wrong, all of which make his argument not specific to the time frame of the 9/11 attack. And I don't want to bore you with the details. We might get into that later. But as far as the three things, number one, my sister and Hillary took my intellectual property. Number two, uh, the the American Flight 77 that most people still think hit the Pentagon, which it did not, that was being flown by a guy in my Naval Academy class, whose name was Chick Burlingame. And the reason he was in that airplane on that day is he wrote the exercise plan for the Amalgam Virgo 01 exercise, which they only practiced once on June 1st and 2nd of 2001. And then when they determined that they had the ability to allow Canada to protect American airspace, then they were running that same exercise again on September 11th, but this time the exercise went rogue, and the Canadian people that were roped into doing this by powers over in the City of London and the Vatican and some places like that, maybe Georgetown University, the Senior Executive Service, a corporation named Serco. Anyway, they really ambushed the United States of America on 9/11. And this guy, James Perloff, I think, and I've got to give a lot of credit to Richie, because Richie, when he was done with Perloff, he summarized and he said something that's an extreme compliment to Abel Danger. He said, between James Perloff and Abel Danger, I think they've got it absolutely explained. But he didn't get into maybe one of us is wrong on this and one of us is wrong on that. But in my little brain, I think what Richie probably will think about doing is he'll probably think about getting, this is what I'd do if I was Richie Ellen, I'd get me and James Perloff on a live show and let us discuss this. Because James Perloff would think I'd be totally unpredictable and wild, and he'd be wrong. It's always good to be unpredictable. And so I would just be as calm and measured as I could possibly be. Okay, so we got, my sister and Hillary took the intellectual property. Chick Burlingame wrote the plan for 9/11, but the plan was taken rogue, and they had to kill him, as in premeditated murder, because otherwise he would recognize his own plan, and he would recognize that his intellectual property had been hijacked, just like mine was, and I recognized it very clearly. I had a nice conversation this morning for a man in Massachusetts who you've met and talked to on the phone, and he absolutely agrees with me, and he's got a part to play in this. In fact, if there's a man up in Alberta named Ryan listening, you ask about the ranch, so I hope Phil will ask me about the ranch, because I think we're about ready to get good news. But you can't eat thoughts. You have to wait till transactions take place. Okay, so we got my sister, we got Chick Burlingame from the Naval Academy class. How about the three F-16s that scrambled off Langley Air Force Base at 0932 on the morning of 9/11? Well, they were from my old Air National Guard unit, Fargo, and I couldn't cause all three of those things to happen, but God could, and God did. And that's why I'm sitting here right now answering this question. It's a very good question the man sent me. But his central question was, I think I'm paraphrasing him right, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but he thought, or he placed great confidence in the information we were sharing, and he thought it was extremely dangerous information to be sharing. And he said, aren't you afraid you're going to get killed? And the answer is twofold. No, I'm not afraid in the least. Second, well, part of the reason is I don't like the condition of the world. I don't like how American servicemen are being treated by the people that deploy force from the United States for foreign powers. I don't like that at all. I don't like another thing. I don't like how pedophilia is the controlling mechanism that runs our government. And I could start rattling off some specific names of politicians who are up to their eyeballs in pedophilia, but I don't think it's time to do that yet. I think that time's coming, and it'll be my pleasure and mandate to be as honest and open about the pedophiles, maybe even some from Wisconsin, that are not serving the American people and the Republic of the United States of America, not the corporation of the United States of America. See, that's where the danger really lies, is people are coming awake so fast, and they're coming awake in Europe a lot faster than the US and Canada. But people in the US, for instance, this man just emailed me this morning, and that became the basis of this radio show. Okay, another reason I'm not afraid of this is I've been doing it so long, I'm numb. It's too late to silence me. David and I have put out 150,000 pages of cross-reference text. We printed 14 to 17 books. We've done over 1,000 radio shows right here on this live stream channel. This radio show right now is number 760, and they probably average 2 hours in length. So if anybody wanted to call me into a courtroom without a gold fringe flag and ask me questions, then they're gonna be at a disadvantage unless they listen to 2 hours times 760, which is 1,520 hours of what I said, because they can't say I'm wrong unless they tell me specifically where I'm wrong and when I said it, and specifically the words I chose. And I don't think the 18 intelligence agencies in the United States of America have the collective focus to be able to do that, nor do they have the time, nor do they have the budget. But David and I, working with no budget, have done this for 10 years and 9 or 10 months. And the central reason to why I'm not fearful is because of two scriptures, which I hope the chat room probably can anticipate. One of them is Isaiah 54:17, saying that no weapon raised against you can prevail, and any tongue that accuses you, you will rebuke. So right there, God's telling anyone who wants to take, if you want to take control of that scripture and apply it to your own life, you can do it. All you have to do is read it, believe it, and tell God, sign me up. I believe it. I believe you'll protect me. I'm not afraid. And there's some wonderful quotes in the Bible, but the other one that's central to my thinking is Psalm 91, 11 to 14, where it says that because he knows my name, I will have my angels look over him so that he will not hurt his foot against the stone. I'm really paraphrasing very poorly. But he goes on to say in 11 to 14 of Psalm 91 that because he believes my name, he can trample on the snake and the cobra and the young lion. And basically what he's saying is, if God himself foreknows, predestines, calls, and justifies a person, that person can wage these battles in God's name and with God's support and never lose. And that's what I intend to do. Now, that sounds boastful once again. I'm not boasting about me. I could start rattling off things where I'm personal weaknesses and things that I'm not proud of and things I've done that I wish I could take back. But God prepared me very well. And one of the ways God prepared me was putting me in a bunch of unique circumstances which are not logical, and I'm not capable of causing myself to be in those situations or to finish. For instance, I was not qualified to go to the Naval Academy, and yet I graduated. And but looking backwards, it's so easy to see that God was holding my right hand every step of the way, and he prepared me. I mean, my own sister is probably the second most evil person in the United States of America that I know of. The other person, since it's Sunday, I'll give him a kitchen pass, but he's a Nazi, pedophile, homosexual, trillionaire. And I don't think he's going to learn, just like Alexander Haig did, that being a billionaire or a trillionaire doesn't get you through the interview when you're called home. And at the end of our lives, we're all going to be judged. Some people believe that now and understand it and know it to be true. Other people don't believe it yet, but I think they will. So the short answer, now that it's too late to give you a short answer, I'm not afraid of this. If I was afraid of it, I'd probably dress up with a tie and look over my shoulder. In fact, I want to explain this hat to people that are Able to Danger faithfuls. I was just recently over with Denise in England for a month, and I said, "Hey, Denise, do you know the type of a hat that Henry Blake used to wear in MASH?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, let's go looking. If I find one in the shop, I'll buy it." This isn't exact, but it's close enough. And can you imagine a ribbon going around here?
Yeah.
If somebody from Able Danger sends me a sample, I don't mean a physical sample. if you just give me a link to a ribbon that would be, what is that? That's just about an inch.
That is.
Yeah. Uh, a ribbon that might be, I don't know, 18, whatever the circumference of my head would be, and then about an inch. I'll put a ribbon around this, and then when we get the ranch in Texas, everybody that comes down for our first get together, and that hopefully that'll be a big number, but everybody that comes down is going to have to bring a gift for me, and they're going to have a receipt that proves it costs less than $1. And they're only allowed to give me one gift. And then we'll just, if we get 30 fishing lures, we'll sit around the table and we'll all vote on which the 10 or 15 best fishing lures are, and those will go on the hat.
Let me understand this. You weren't actually telling people that they should give you fishing lures that cost less than $1, were you?
If they can find them,
Oh,
and they
okay.
can find them. Over in England, they have those charity shops, and they also have a thing called a car boot, which is, are you familiar with this? I mean, I'm so mixed up whether I'm in England or the States, but a car boot is where you go to a public place, you open the trunk of a car or the sliding door of a van, and you start taking out your display tables and all the junk you're trying to sell. And see, in this country, we might call them thrift shops.
Correct.
Or somebody, when some old man dies, his daughter may not like his fishing lures, so they'll sell them cheap.
Right.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd ask, if anybody, if this happens, and I do think the ranch is going to happen, let me just get that punchline out right away. I've been told that it's very, very possible that we could get the news we've been waiting for this week, and it's even more likely it'll be received before the 1st of October. So the wait, which has been difficult for a lot of people, and it's difficult for me, not because I'm the person that might be able to afford the ranch. It's difficult for me because I'm the one who's saying this ranch is going to happen, and yet I'm not in control of how it's going to happen, although I'm intimately aware. But once again, God's in control. But if this ranch happens, instead of being in this studio with this equipment, we will have a professional studio, and we'll broadcast to the world, and we'll do it once again for no money. We've been offered, Able Danger has been offered advertising revenue, and I think that abledanger.org is, and I'm excluding myself from that process, but there's 3 people that are discussing it, and I think they're going to go with it because there's people that really do like our information, and they have respect for what we present and how we present it. And see, I'm not a really good spokesman for that either, am I, with this hat on? But the reason I wear hats is to show that the people that think they're really smart and they're really running the world, well, you might not be as smart as you think you are if people that wear these funny hats are getting the best of you, and you're nervous and you're having uncontrolled urination and we're not. I mean, I'm not wearing it. Depends. You'd be able to smell it if I was.
Well, I, as a matter of fact, do know a lot about Depends now.
I know, and that's because there's a geriatric.
Housing another geriatric who's just a little more geriatric than we are. He happens to be 93 years old, happens to be my father, and he's doing a wonderful job of being tolerant with myself and my wife taking care of him now. So, but that being said, let's move back to this faith and fear and confidence and knowledge in one of the things that we find in life is we have this fear of dying. And that fear of dying enslaves us to this life, and that's literally what creates our fear.
Yeah.
And so this question is kind of interesting, as I have, these beliefs within myself on this whole dying event that's way overplayed, because we in ourselves, in my belief pattern, never die. We go on to do different things. Whatever that is, we're not aware of in this realm of this existence. But, so yeah, Field, I think, comes and presents himself and does his thing from this beingness that is not afraid of the future, whatever that may bring. And we both do whatever we do because we don't have this fear in us that bad things can have there. What is bad? I'm not convinced of that.
Yeah, there's nothing that can separate your soul from the Spirit of the Lord. I wish I had a Bible that was easy to read, and I hope someone in the chat room puts it up. And if they do put it up in the chat room, Luke 4:18, and it talks about this: the Spirit of the Lord is on me because He's called me to do certain things. And if somebody puts it up in the chat room, I'll interrupt Phil and I'll read Luke 4:18. But we're getting lots of new listeners. Our traffic is up exponentially, thanks in large part to the Hagman report and to the Ole Damagard interview. And I've got to give a compliment to the Hagmans. I've never been interviewed by people that are so good at interviewing, and that's where the power of the interview comes, from the quality of the interviewer, not the person. Do you have Luke 4:18?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
No.
I bet someone in the chat, but go ahead and ask, and I'll look for it in the chat.
Well, so now we've kind of discussed this whole thing about faith and fear, and moving on from that, this gentleman that sent you this email brought up this question about General Kelly. Why don't you go ahead and read this?
And then we'll get to General Kelly.
Yeah.
As I'm hopeful that General Kelly is what we all think he is. But Carrie from Southern Illinois, I think, and I know Carrie's, her agent name is Cookie Monster. I've never met her, but she's in charge of keeping track of all the stories we're going to tell around a campfire in Texas. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free. Well, 7 billion people in this globe are being oppressed by a super minority of people that think they're somehow better than all the rest of us. So first of all, those people whose names rhyme with Rothschild or Rockefeller or Clinton, Obama is one of the worst cases, but these people, Bushes, George Soros, Warren Buffett, you're not as smart as you think you are. You wouldn't be listening to me right now. But as far as God using humble people to do some things that may work out to be pretty impressive, well, God prepares those people. That's written in Romans 8:28 through 31, where He says, for those He foreknew, He predestined. For those He predestined, He called. For those He called, He justified. Let me stop right there. Justified means God determines that someone is righteous. Now notice it said He justified. God does, not the individual. The only thing the individual can do in this 5-step process is sanctify, and that means to conduct yourself in a manner that you're worthy to be thought of as a saint. And a lot of us get mixed up because of certain religions. They say saint this guy, saint that guy. Everybody's a saint, Then you got the New Orleans Saints, which is based on the Bible also. But a saint is simply someone, I believe, and I want to be corrected in the chat room, but I think saints are basically people that God has deemed worthy. And there's a wonderful song by Johnny Cash called He'll Understand and Say Well Done. There's so many different ways to explain this, but unfortunately, a lot of the organized churches and a lot of the professional clergymen, they make this stuff sound like they're so special and we're so unworthy. You got it backwards. There's a guy down in Texas named Joel Osteen. I'm not judging him. I just know he lives in a huge house, and he needed a little nudge to allow people that were running from that man-made hurricane named Harvey. He has a really big facility, a super church, and I think they had to put a little pressure on him, say, well, you preach really well on Sunday. Are you going to open your doors on Monday and let these people come in? And ultimately, I believe he did. But those types of personalities, the really slick preachers, whether they're legit or not, I'm not their judge. All I know is that doesn't play well with a lot of people whose lives are really in the toilet, and they're their own worst enemy because they think that God couldn't love them. Well, maybe I've been called to tell you that God does love you, and even if you think you're not worthy, just have that conversation with God privately and listen to what he says. And if you think you're going to listen with your ears or a tape, no, just open a Bible. And you don't even have to know anything about a Bible. The moment that my life was converted, which was on the 1st of February of 1994, I opened the Bible and I didn't know anything about it except it had an old book and a new book and a lot of men's names that were hard to pronounce, and those men were all failures. But when I opened it, the first time I opened the Bible for a good purpose, my attention was drawn to was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge God, he will direct your paths. Over to you.
So, as part of this question, as it goes on and it goes from, faith and fear into General Kelly, and here we have a picture of the band around the hat with the fishing lures. And so, yeah, anybody that's in the chat room right now that is seeing these pictures, that if somebody doing graphic arts could just change that face to field, that'd be great.
I know who can do it. You talk, I'm going to call the graphic artist right now.
Yeah.
The guy's name is, his last name is Smith, and he's in Florida. And
that'd be wonderful.
Go ahead.
So here we are, putting the camera on me for a moment as field goes into the backdrop. We've got this question by this gentleman about General Kelly, and all of this information going to General Kelly from Able Danger, and his concern is, why in hell would we be sharing this information, or would Field and Able Danger be sharing this information with General Kelly? It's his belief that General Kelly already knows all of this. Well, and that brings up kind of an interesting question to me, and we'll let Field answer this as well, is if General Kelly actually knows all of the information that Able Danger is creating and presenting to him, or not creating, but discovering and presenting to him, if General Kelly already knows all of this, well, maybe General Kelly isn't on the right side in the beginning, because all the people that come to be on the correct side don't necessarily know everything that's going on, or they would have tried to correct it by now. So that brings up sort of an interesting question in regards to that. Is I'd like to believe that General Kelly is on the right side, but if he knows everything, and maybe this gentleman that asked the question knows something more than what we know, and if his premise being correct that General Kelly already knows everything, then maybe he's the wrong guy. Not sure. What do you think about that, Field?
Believe it or not, let me just send this, and I've got a pretty good answer to that. I think what I'm trying to do, and I'm just one of the people at Able Danger, although a lot of people think everybody's got their own opinion of me, good, bad, or otherwise, and you're all welcome to those opinions. There's only one truth, and what the truth is doesn't matter. It's your vision of the truth that you're going to be saddled with. General Kelly, I've got to start off with a very strong endorsement. He once was talking to a big crowd in either Boston or New York on 9/11, and he was giving a 9/11 patriotic themed speech. And I think this was while he was an active Marine general. I don't know. Somebody in the chat room will correct me. But he didn't, the people that were assembled there to get an encouraging speech from John F. Kelly, who is a Boston area native, a Marine from 1970 to 2015. So he was I could be off a year or two, but I'm not off more than that. He was enlisted man for 2 years. He went to college on the GI Bill. He got commissioned in 1976, and he retired, I think, in 2016 or 2015. So, he spent 45 years serving his country. But when he was asked, because of his elevated position, how we all like to have heroes. Most of us do, and probably a lot of people wish they could be one, and they can. It's just you got to have God work it out. Don't try to work it out yourself. But General Kelly did not mention anywhere in his speech where he's telling everybody about the value of patriotism. He didn't mention that his own son, a Marine Corps first lieutenant, had just been killed in Iraq 3 weeks prior. And I really respect General Kelly, you know, not that he could have controlled the loss of his son, but he survived it with dignity and he's serving honorably. And the reason I do the weird stuff I do, and I know it's weird, but keep in mind, I don't do this on my own. I was prepared to do it. And